Hi there. Now, I want to talk you through panic. If you're having a panic attack or you feel like there's one coming on, I want this video to be just for you. Imagine I'm actually with you, telling you what to do as you go along. Now, if you watch my last panic video, I'll have described a bit more about the process of panic, why it happens and what you can do about it. But if you're actually having one now, I want to be here to show you what to do and how to do it. Now, whatever caused this panic to come on, in many cases you think, what did bring it on? You don't really understand why it's happening. Whatever the reason, you need to know the right approach in which to calm it down and let it go. Now, in the past, if you've had a number of these panic attacks, in fact, you might have had years of them, you've always done the same things. You've always taken the wrong approach, and this is what has kept the panic going in your life. It's taking the wrong approach that keeps the thing alive. And the wrong approach is to fight it. You instinctively think you should do this, is to fight the panic. It's something that you do in any situation, is to fight against it, trying to make it stop, trying to make it go away. Or you try and forget about it. You try and distract yourself from it. You try and blot it out your mind. You don't want to be thinking about it. You want it just to disappear and go away. And so you do everything you can think of to make that happen. And as you probably discovered quite early on, you can't do that. It doesn't work. The panic will still go on. It always dies down. Of course it does. But what I'm trying to show you here is that you can get it to die down very much more quickly. Now, the first thing you need to do, instead of trying to not think about it, I want you to think about it. I want you to describe to yourself what is actually happening in your body right this minute. Now, you can either say this out loud or you can think it, but I want you to describe in detail exactly what is happening in your body. For example, you might say, oh, I'm breathing like crazy, I'm breathing fast, I'm panting. My heart's pounding, I can feel it thumping in my chest and it's going so fast. I'm shaking all over, I'm trembling like a leaf. I'm sweating and sweat pouring off of me. My legs feel like they're going to buckle under me. These are the things that you are going to describe. It's everything that's happening. It could be a lot of different things. Everybody's experience of panic is slightly different. You might say like, oh God, my stomach feels terrible, I feel sick, my stomach's in a knot, things like that. Or my mouth's gone dry, and my tongue's stuck to my roof of my mouth because my mouth is so dry. I'm just shaking so much, I can't stop it. All this kind of thing. Now, what you're doing here is the exact opposite of what you normally do. You're actually facing it head on, and you're not trying to avoid thinking about it. And even that simple act of just turning and facing it can actually have an effect on the panic. In other words, you might actually feel the panic starting to lessen just by describing it. Now that sounds stupid, sounds illogical, doesn't seem to make any sense. But you're actually facing this thing that has ruined your life and what has caused you so many problems. You're facing it. Now, as you've done this, the next thing is to go and adopt as much as you can a completely passive approach to it. Instead of tensing all your muscles up and constricting yourself like an overwound spring, instead of doing that, you're just going to slump in a way, slump, sag, loosen your body. Instead of trying to force this panic to stop by tensing yourself against it, you're actually just going to let it behave in any way it wants to. You're just going to allow the panic to do anything to your body. Now, if you watch my other video, I've made it very clear that panic does not harm you. It can't harm you. There is no reason for it to do so, because it's there to protect you. If you're out walking one day, you went to cross a road, and suddenly out of nowhere this car came hurtling towards you, what would happen? You'd leap out of the way. In a split second you'd have leapt out of the way to avoid getting knocked down. Now, after that, once you've got out of the way of the car, you'll feel exactly as you do now. You'll be shaking, you'll be breathing fast, your heart will be thumping. That is panic working as it's supposed to. It saved you. It saved your life. And afterwards, you know the reason that you feel this way, because you just had a major scare. And panic kicked in to save you. So you'd accept that that is how you felt, and you'd also accept that after a few minutes, all those reactions will calm down because the danger is past. Now, the difference now is that when you panic, there's no obvious reason for you to panic as you see it. The fact is, there's always a reason, but sometimes it's very subtle and it's very obscure, and you can't see it. It's not obvious enough to you. So, to you, it seems like it just comes out of nowhere, and that's exactly what it feels like. And that in itself is frightening enough. The fact that suddenly all these horrible feelings are raging through your body, and think, why is this happening? And you're adding extra fear to the fear that is already happening. So when you do that, what you're doing is this. You're telling your nervous system, which created the panic in the first place, that there really is a danger here. You're telling it in no uncertain terms that you're in grave peril, and therefore your nervous system has to respond appropriately. And what it does is to make the fear worse. Of course it does. You've told it there's extreme danger here. So that your nervous system, hearing this from you, says, right, I'll give you more symptoms. I'll make you even more prepared to fight or to run away. That's what it's designed to do. And this is where the cycle continues. You tell your nervous system that, it comes back at you with stronger symptoms, and in response to that you think, oh my God, this is awful, this is terrible, and it gets worse, and you feed more fear back into the nervous system, which produces even stronger fear. And you keep doing this for minutes, hours. It can go on and on because you keep the loop going. You keep this process repeating itself. You keep stimulating your nervous system with more fear, and it keeps responding by giving you more fear. So it goes on. Now, in the instance where you saw panic work properly, and it saved your life, the panic dies away in minutes. And this is what you're aiming for. You're aiming to get panic to behave as it's supposed to. And this is why, when you offer no resistance to it, when you're prepared to let it carry you along with it, so to speak, like a wave would carry you along if you were floating on a big wave and it was coming into shore. You just float along on the top of it and you just glide into the shore. And the wave will only last so long, and then it'll spend itself and you'll be at rest. It'll have just floated you onto the beach, so to speak. The same way as if you surfed on. If you're on top of a wave on the surfboard, you're on this big wave and it's carrying you forward, and it will just gently drop you on the beach. It's that simple, really. By offering as little resistance to it as you can manage, you're actually helping it to stop. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh, this is all very well, but there's all this stuff going on in my head. I'm scared to death. There's all these terrible thoughts happening in my head of what this panic, what this thing is going to do to me. And you think, well, what am I going to do about that? you don't have to do anything about it. As with the physical symptoms, all these thoughts are part of the panic process. They're automatic. It's the way your mind works at lightning speed, as if you're in a real dangerous situation. All these thoughts go through your head. Sometimes in a dangerous situation, a real one, you'd have to think very quickly. And that's why all this stuff goes through your mind at lightning speed. You don't have to do anything about it at all. You can't do anything about it. The same as the physical symptoms, the thought processes are automatic. So you do the same with those as you do with the physical feelings. You just go along with it, go along with it. You don't have to get involved with these thoughts. They're just frightening thoughts in your mind. They don't tell you anything that's of any importance. It's not something you need to act upon. They're just frightening thoughts generated by the panic state itself. Okay, now, if you've got a few minutes into your panic now and you're trying a totally different approach, so the first time you try this, you probably won't notice much difference. You could possibly find the panic starts to go away much more quickly. And it goes away more quickly in response to how much of this accepting approach you can manage. But for many people, they had to keep practicing. They had to go through the panic this way on a number of occasions until they start to really see its effect on the panic. Now, when you really do see this, when you start to feel panic go away much more quickly, then that gives you confidence in the approach. You have had the experience of seeing panic start to die away, and it's the experience that counts. That is what is going to work for you in the future, and this will eventually take you to the point where you will do what I did in what I described in my last video. You'll eventually reach the point where you've had enough practice of this, and you will be prepared to let anything panic do, anything you think panic can do, happen. Anything. Literally anything. And the situation I described that day in my last video, when I was driving and I decided I had had enough of the panic, I got really angry with it. And I said, I am sick of you. Either you can kill me now or you can stop. I said, I don't care anymore what you do. You're just so angry. Being angry gives you the courage to do that sometimes. You're goading the panic into doing its worst. And in the story I told, panic stopped in minutes. It literally stopped, stone cold. It was just gone in a matter of minutes. Now, this is what you're aiming for, but you won't necessarily get to that point immediately. You see, there's always that last little 1% that keeps the panic alive. There's that 1% left over of fear of what you think panic can do. Now, you've had enough panics by now probably to appreciate that panic can only do one thing, and that is to make you afraid. Yes, it makes all these changes in your body, but none of that actually hurts you in any way. It's designed to protect you. How could it hurt you? It's there to protect you. So, but keep practicing this facing and then letting it happen approach. You will begin to achieve success. You don't need this thing controlling your life. You don't need it messing up all the things you want to do, because you're always living in fear of it coming, and especially fear of it coming at the worst possible moment, which is when it seems to do that. It always seems to be at the worst moment. And it's those moments that, of course, you're most fearful, because you think, what if it happens now? What if people see me like this? What if I can't control it? What if I go mad? What if I start raving and ranting and running amok? All this ridiculous stuff that goes through your mind. You're attributing panic with all sorts of powers it doesn't have. It can't do these things. It can't. It's not what it's designed to do. But you still fear it might, and that is what is keeping it going. So you need to practice going along with it. Going along with it. Now, I don't know where you are now. Maybe by now the panic has really started to fade away. And you're feeling a bit better and you think, oh, it's going. Whenever you sense the panic is starting to die down, you kind of begin to let go of it. You say, yes, it's definitely going. You're feeling better, you stop shaking, or your breathing started to slow down. You think, yes, it's definitely going this time. And you will feel relieved. And what you're doing there is actually doing what I've been suggesting. You're letting it pass. It started to die away, and you're letting it finish dying away. Do you see what I'm saying here? However you've experienced panic in the past, and when it's gone on and on and on, sooner or later you reach a point where it has to stop. You know this. You know it always stops. It's impossible for panic to keep going indefinitely. You can't do that. For one thing, you run out of adrenaline in your body. Your body can only produce so much. You can't produce an unlimited supply of it. So sooner or later, panic has to stop. But you can make it sooner with this non-fighting approach. And that's what it's all about. So that you eventually get to a point where you don't care about it anymore. You're not frightened of it anymore. It's not going to control your life anymore. And this is what you want. You want to be able to live your life without this shadow of panic hanging over you. I mean, I spent so many years living like that, and I hated it. I hated always worrying about this wretched thing that kept coming back. This thing that I seemed to be able to do nothing about. But when I faced it down that day, when I turned and faced it and goaded it to do its worst, and then I saw it disappear, it was a memory I can never forget because it was absolutely amazing. And this is what you can do too. This is what any panic sufferer can do. It's always a choice. You always have that choice. I know it's very hard because there is still so much doubt in your mind. Still so much uncertainty as to, will this really work? Well, you might not be able to take my word for it. You have to experience it for yourself. And that's what counts. But I'm here to tell you that it does work, and I'm not the only person who says that. This is why I've urged you to read the Panic Switch book, because Jeffrey Holmes has done a super job here in describing all about this process, why it exists, why we fear panic so much, why the panic cycle goes on and on. Right, well, I'm hoping by now you'll have calmed down enough, and if you've at least attempted to practice doing it this way, that's a really, really good start. You're willing to give it a try, you're willing to attempt a different approach, and this is the beginning. This is the beginning of your recovery. You're not condemned to live like this for the rest of your life. Nobody is. You still have a choice. Now, come back and watch this as many times as you want to. Imagine I'm here telling you this when you get a panic. This is what I'm aiming to do here. I want you to have something you can use when panic strikes. Something you can follow, something that will encourage you and get you through it until you reach the point where panic doesn't matter anymore. And that's a brilliant place to be. And you can do it too. Anyone can. So come back and watch this any time, and you'll find this approach will start to work for you. And just think of what a difference it'll make to your life. This panic is no longer in charge. You'll get your life back, and all the things you thought you wouldn't be able to do anymore because of this panic, you realise that you can do. Panic is just like a phantom, really. It's not real. It's just a mistake. You're just mistakenly approaching it. And when you do it the right way, that's when you see it in its true colours. So keep practicing, keep on doing it, and then you'll find the answer. You'll get to be free of panic. This is the way, and it works. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again.